Welcome to Real Time, Real Talk, a Dexcom podcast dedicated to pharmacists and other healthcare professionals on the front lines, helping people thrive who live with diabetes.
So me being able to get an alert that it's predicting my glucose will be less than 55 in the next 20 minutes and to eat some glucose so I don't have to get as low as I could have gone if I didn't get that alert. Or even sometimes I can prevent going low because I'm able to get some glucose soon enough in my body and just go on with my day and not interrupt playing football or trying to catch baseballs with my boys. So those are just a few of the things that I love.
Dexcom is the leading developer of real-time continuous glucose monitoring, also known as RT-CGM, and other digital technologies to better manage diabetes. Real-time CGM provides critical glycemic metrics for physicians, pharmacists, and diabetes specialists to act upon to help their patients live with as much freedom as possible. Dexcom empowers people to take control of diabetes through innovative, continuous glucose monitoring. Real Time, Real Talk is a proud member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. For more information on all Dexcom's technologies, products, and services, please visit Dexcom.com. That's DEXCOM.com.
You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Since 2009, the Pharmacy Podcast has been leading podcast publications as the insider voice of the pharmacy industry. Explore the profession and business of pharmacy through audio. Join us at pharmacypodcast.com or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any of your favorite podcast directories.
Flip the Pharmacy is a practice transformation initiative that aims to flip community-based pharmacies away from a point in time where prescription level and care processes to longitudinal patient level care process and business models through hands-on coaching. This is a transformation of community pharmacies. This is a program that's brought to us by the CPESN network, the clinical programs unit at CPESN. There will be show notes in today's podcast about Flip the Pharmacy and CPESN. Please take a look at that. It's an amazing transformational entity. It's a jewel within the pharmacy industry, really helping us to move from the prescription-focused payment that we're kind of hostage to right now, to moving outside of it, not being directly attached to the medication, but about the treatment that the medication brings as a tool of what a pharmacist brings to the table, which is ongoing consultation in many chronic disease states. The reason why I started out with Flip the Pharmacy in today's podcast is because of an individual who is doing her version of Flip the Pharmacy, but it's really empowering that individual by taking what Dr. Thompson has experienced and applying it to helping people to level up to their next level as someone that is just passionate about people, but also passionate about us, this pharmacy care, family that we're all part of, the U.S. Pharmy, like I like to say with our T-shirts that we sell. To raise money for vets. But I want to welcome Dr. Melissa Thompson, PharmD, to the Pharmacy Podcast Network and our RX Influencer program. Melissa, I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here. And I love that we're starting with Flip the Pharmacy, because I think that the concept of flipping where we are and, like you said, leveling up is a really important piece of how we approach life, because I think it's easy to get stuck and there's a lot going on in the world. And when we can slow down, look at what our options are and flip, look at our mindset, change where we're heading, we can really impact the world. We can impact ourselves. We can impact our communities. There's a lot there. So thank you so much for inviting me to Pharmacy Podcast Network today. I'm really happy to be here.
You are very welcome. You are the first guest that we've had on the program since the announcement from Metagy. They're the sponsors of the 2022 Metagy Healthcare and IT Marketing Community, known as HITMIC, which really teaches our collaboration in technology, collaboration in practice through digital therapeutics. And so we've got the Podcast of the Year award for Healthcare Podcast of the Year. So I want to give a shout out to our hosts and to our sponsors. And just I want to thank everybody. And I want to thank Melissa for sharing this with us, because like I said, you're the first guest since we just got this announcement. And we wanted to say thank you so much to the community out there who's recognizing that, yes, it's time to recognize pharmacists as players in every aspect that a patient is involved. So let me say that again. Pharmacists should be involved anywhere in medicine that a patient is involved. And that's where a pharmacist belongs, because there's so many things that we could start splitting hairs on that really drive precision medicine. And that starts with the person. So the reason why I'm kicking off kind of like a new age in pharmacy podcasting for us, Melissa, is to bring you in to talk about how it starts with the individual, how it starts with us, ourselves, because I am guilty of putting myself last because of me wanting to drive so hard to be successful for pharmacists, to be successful for my clients, to be successful for my family, my daughters, my wife. And sometimes I stop and look, and I'm the back of the bus. So I don't know if you've experienced that yourself.
Oh, for sure. I am guilty of being a people pleaser and wanting to make everybody happy and to serve. I think a lot of us as pharmacists have a huge heart of service, and that's part of what drives us into pharmacy. And I think by looking at that and slowing down and recognizing, hey, wait, if I'm not taking care of myself, how am I going to provide the level of service that I want to provide to my patients? How am I going to engage with my family at the level that I want to engage with them? How do I become present to each and every moment that I'm experiencing? Because life is happening in the moment. And I think that there's a big evolution that's occurred within the mindfulness movement. And I think as pharmacists, we can bring that into our practice, both for ourselves and our own mental health and our own sanity as we work day to day on really important issues in multiple practice settings, to the patient and helping the patient see that they can slow down and they can be mindful. And there's a lot of communication that happens in pharmacy too. And I think with the communication piece, we can be really mindful of how we're taking care to communicate, taking care to listen. And that's where it really starts, is I think with the listening. And what you just reminded me of is how important it is to listen to ourselves. And that's one of the things that I've really taken some time in my life to stop and to listen and to go deep and to hear what it is that's being said inside, what is resounding inside, and to listen to that, because then I'm able to then integrate and align with a deeper sense of self. And then with that, come into the world with a greater openness, a softer heart, and a more ready connectivity. And I just have to say, I'm so excited for Pharmacy Podcast Network and this award, because it goes to show that this movement of understanding the importance of who is your pharmacist on multiple levels in multiple arenas and realms. And that is a piece that I think that more and more people are starting to understand.
Amen. Absolutely. And I want listeners to just understand something. So I see things with a pharmacy filter on them because I always will watch the individual pharmacist do something that empowers others or really digs down into a clinical issue or something data related that they're digging into. Everything that I just said draws in the specific personality of the pharmacist, and where you bring something extremely unique. And here's the math of that. So let's get real analytical here for a second, Melissa. How many Americans are there in the United States right now? Approximately 330 million Americans, right? Plus. And we have to welcome in through the immigration process all of these people flowing into our nation to prepare them to become healthy, productive, driven, united Americans to heal our country of this pandemic and coming together. And I think there's strength in numbers, right? That's why I put together the Pharmacy Podcast Network. That's the network to me is the strength that we bring to each other. We're bringing to holding each other up and realizing, wow, hashtag Together RX is really a movement to unify this entire industry so that we can deliver better pharmacy care. I mean, that's the end, and that's the whole reason that I'm doing this is ultimately, but I know what I'm good at, so I'm staying in my lane, you know. I'm not the clinical person. I am not a PharmD, you know. I'm not even a CPHT. I'm not even a certified pharmacy technician. I'm a passionate technologist, marketer, business development, you know, podcaster that knew how to bring people together and then market it every day. And what marketing means is communications. And you put out some amazing communications with things that you've developed, but it's been through the lens of the scientific pharmacist that you are, which, my goodness, you combine the empathy with your heart, with the science of your intelligent, you know, coming together of how many, you know, 6+, 8+ years of education, and now you're ready to put that into practice. That excites me. So let's bring it into the clinical passion that you have.
All right. Well, I love that you talked about passion. I was writing, thinking about things that I wanted to share today, and passion was one of them. And in talking about how we start with ourselves, connecting with our passion is what produces amazing results. And that's what you've done with Pharmacy Podcast Network. You've created this network, this community that then is able to go beyond like our little bubble that we sometimes live in and get to know new people. And that's one of the things that I've absolutely loved about connecting on social media in areas like LinkedIn, because it's been able to take me beyond my little bubble. And I think the pandemic pushed us a lot in that direction too, because we started reaching out beyond our current workplace. We started networking more, and an evolution began. And with my background in pharmacy, that's really where some of my passion started, was with wanting to communicate beyond just the lab. So I was a student studying chemistry and fascinated by enzymes and all the inner workings. And it's been really fun. I think I noted this to you once, that I have a 6-year-old who is fascinated with chemistry. And so it's brilliant watching him talk about different flowers being carbon atoms and hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms. And he fascinates me, right? And so this is passion though. And this is where, when we look and we see when people have passion, things happen, right? I see his mind working, and it reminds me of how my mind was when I was first starting out in pharmacy, just so interested in understanding how things work, right? And looking and using that lens of curiosity. And this is, I know we'll get to this a little later, but one of the things things that I talk about in the book I recently wrote, Seeds of Potentiality, is I talk about put on your lab coat. Let's get curious. Be the chemist, be the scientist in your own life. And I think that that is what drew me to become a clinical pharmacist, is that level of curiosity, my absolute love of chemistry and science, and the desire to communicate. That was one of the things that I knew was important for me, to find an avenue of marrying my interest in science with my interest in people. And I was working in a lab, and this my professor at the time, she said, Melissa, you need to look for something where you're really going to be able to talk to people. And she was one of the individuals that really pushed for UC San Diego to start a school of pharmacy. When I went to undergrad there, they didn't have one. And so I ended up going to UC San Francisco because there was no UC San Diego yet. But I really learned a lot from her, and I learned a lot from understanding that when we marry our passions, when we look at our skill set, when we bring all of that forward, then we can impact the lives of others. And I think that that's what all of us in pharmacy are really about, is wanting to impact lives.
Absolutely. And in different ways, because here's the thing, I do not expect every pharmacist that's ever listened to any of our programs or that I've ever met, at a conference or whatever, they're different people. So some pharmacists I met are extremely analytical, and they're not as tied into the empathy of patient care per se, right? But they want to be they want to look under the microscope. They want to research. They want to read. They consult, be on the phone, talk, go through data. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need those pharmacists. And just like if you were Dr. Allison Chung, one of our podcasters, she's the pediatric pharmacist podcast. She's passionate about kids. All right. If I were a pharmacist, I certainly wouldn't want to be in charge of the super little baby, children per se. I think that'd be really cute, but I like dealing with adults. That's just who I am. But you might be a great pediatrician pharmacist. Regardless, it's where your strength is. So you're absolutely right, Melissa. This is about empowering people where they are. And that kind of brings me to our next subject, which is you let the cat out of the bag and gave away the surprise. And that is Seeds of Potentiality. This book, very special, very impressed with just the way that it's framed. I started reading portions of this, but I need to finish this. So we're gonna talk about some giveaways too today of Seeds of Potentiality through this podcast. But tell me about what made you want to write a book, and this specific book, and what this means for you as a gift to others.
Thank you, Todd. I have to say that this book has been living in me for almost a decade. I took about a 6-month sabbatical over a decade ago, like in 2010. And I spent some time in some intentional communities. I studied meditation and yoga. And this is where some of that cultivation of that deeper self started. And I started a journal, and I looked back at it, and it was started on 1/1/2012. So exactly, 10 years ago. And I started having ideas around what I wanted to cultivate in my life, things that I wanted to celebrate. And I've always had a deep sense of creativity. And life is tough, right? So as things kind of came along and I moved through different aspects of life, I would come back to this journal and I would think about, how do I want to create and cultivate and celebrate my life? And this became a little mantra for me, where I started thinking about, okay, well, this is kind of a difficult situation. How am I going to create something out of this? How am I going to make lemonade out of lemons, right? And I think that that's where people recognize that when they go beyond the idea of the paintbrush, beyond the idea of there being particular ways of creating, that creativity is wide open, that we can create a new dish in the kitchen. We can create the way that we show up to work. We can create a new path to work. All of this is part of our creativity. And so I wanted to share this with people. And in 2015, I had the opportunity to go on a vision fast and spend some time in the wilderness and get away and do some of that slowing down that we've been talking about and some of that introspection. And from that experience, I had some significant shifts where I realized, hey, okay, this life, this world, this nature that we live in has so much to offer us. I don't need to be so stressed out. I don't need to the achiever, right? The pharmacist that wants to go from A to Z in 60 seconds and get everything done and be super efficient and effective. I had to slow all of that down and recognize that I really could be present in my life, and that by being present in my life, I would be present to my patients, my clients, my customers. I would be present to my family, this community that we're talking about of networking. And so what I realized was that by connecting with the person that I would spend the rest of my life with, right? The one person I knew I would see every single day, which was me, and really getting that worked out, that I could then move into the world in a way that I really wanted to and show up in my fullness and let go of anything that was inhibiting me from being fully me. And so I wanted to invite others to that. And that's what really inspired me to really finally put this book out and to birth the book, in a sense. I felt like it had kind of a 9 years gestation. And then it was ready to be born. And I wanted to spread these seeds of potentiality to others to help them grow the garden in their lives, where they can put down roots and bloom and express themselves and be fully themselves.
That's special because that really takes time for us to slow down as the busy individuals that we are. I mean, I have 4 daughters and a wife and a business and employees and taxes and all of the things of life. And, being able to combine that insight and that empathy and that sincerity. And sincerity is really an important word today. We watch a lot of reality TV, right? And reality TV is doing something to our society. It's making what's supposed to be reality another drama, which is all about the pheromones, or not the pheromones, the endorphins that the viewer are getting through the entertainment of what is supposed to be real life. And some of that is so scripted, and it's not real, and it's still controlled. It's still a very controlled environment of what everyone is going through within all of those shows. But our culture is not used to sincerity anymore in some ways. It's almost like we've, as a culture, with so much overstimulation of TikTok and social media and, kids not understanding what's the difference between real news and fake news. What does that mean? Who said that? Why did they say that? What does that actually, like, how does that help me look at adults that I'm supposed to be looking up to and the role models that we are? Pharmacists, especially people that are positioning themselves as helping other pharmacists, which is exactly what you're doing, Melissa. You're helping other healthcare professionals that are under more stress today and different stress today than any other healthcare provider that's ever been in our generation or is living today. So think of that. We are a generation of pharmacy care professionals that have experienced something that the world has never experienced with anyone that's lived on it within our generation. So that's very unique. So coming to the show today and really sharing this book, I think is there's a mission here and I want it to be ours to promote this book, to get it out there. That's why I want to talk to you about a giveaway. We'd like to get 10 of these books from you and use them as a giveaway to anyone that's listening today. If you share this podcast and you tag Pharmacy Podcast Network in any way, we're all over social media, so it doesn't matter where you share it. We will put you in to getting one of the first come, first serve 10 copies of this wonderful publication, Seeds of Potentiality. What now, Melissa? I mean, you have this stage set. It's almost like, hey, welcome to your new world, Melissa. You have a lot of work to do, right? But that's, you know what? After 13 years of building this publication, where the first 10 years, it was hardly noticed. And all of a sudden, it just blew up because everybody in their grandma got a microphone or out there podcasting. Like everybody's podcasting now. It's like, hey, whoa. And I'm like, wow, I was doing this 13 years ago. No, I mean, my mom and my brother and maybe Uncle George or somebody listened, but now it's 130,000 listeners per month, and it's growing, and we're getting all of this recognition. We're drawing attention back to pharmacists and pharmacy care. So your stage is now set too, because we're going to help bring knowledge and exposure to who you are and what you want to do to help other people. And especially I'm biased. So I hope that there's pharmacists out there who are going to reach out to you today and schedule a time to talk with you. But your stage is set. So now what?
So what's next is I'm developing some courses to support pharmacists in these concepts that I've shared in the book. And I think that in seeing, just like you said, like podcasts have just exploded, and the availability of different platforms to put coursework out there to support people where they can go at their own pace. So I do offer one-on-one coaching services, and I realize not everyone has time. Like we talked about, it's busy, right? And so those will be coming out hopefully this summer. And the first one that I've been working on is a personalized prescription for morning magic. And the reason that I put this together is exactly what you were talking about when you're talking about having 4 daughters and a wife and a job and the stress level that we're undergoing in today's world. I want to help people to take time out, and it can be 15 minutes of magic. It really can. And the reason that I came to that piece as a starting place is that our morning is like our cornerstone. It's how we start out our day. And that is how I wrote the book. People ask me all the time, Melissa, how did you find time being a mom and a pharmacist and everything that you have going on to write this book? And I said, consistency in the morning. I am a morning person. And so I would wake up each day. And even if it was only 15 minutes, I would get words on the page. And I made mini goals, and I managed to write the manuscript in a few months. The editing, and as you know, editing is tough and takes time. With all the follow-up is probably where there was more juice to squeeze out and get things done. But I continued to use that morning time to accomplish a lot. And I'm having a moment because I'm thinking of this time that I walked into one of the pharmacies I was working at, Todd, and one of my technicians asked me, oh, how was your morning? Because I was working the afternoon shift. And I said, oh, it was great. I went hiking in Big Sur, and I had lunch with my friend and named off a few other things. And he said, Melissa, you got more done this morning than I do all week. And I said, oh, it's all good. It's just the way that I operate. But to get back to the morning piece, I think that helping individuals find that nugget of time for themselves. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And that's part of what I want to help people do. And so what I'm starting off with, Todd, is offering a 3-session one-on-one coaching where it's going to be helping individuals create, cultivate, and celebrate a morning routine. And that's really where I'm going to start off. So that's what's next, Todd, is helping people set that cornerstone of self-care, because I realize it need to be something very specific and something very tangible that people could take away. And I'll be using concepts from my personal growth framework and from the book to help individuals.
That's awesome. And we're also going to be giving away 10 copies of your book. So we want you to share this podcast with a fellow pharmacist, a nurse that you work with, a physician that you work with, and just introduce them to not only our community of amazing 60 plus pharmacists that are contributing content to this network on an ongoing basis, and then another hundreds of pharmacists over the years that have contributed to their passion through audio and sharing their story. And it's just the beginning. So we're excited to help promote this, Melissa, and get more people tagged into you're all over LinkedIn, so you can find Melissa on LinkedIn. And what's your other favorite social media platforms, Melissa? I'm a Twitter guy. I love Twitter. I've loved Twitter since 2009 when I joined Twitter. But that's my go-to social media. But what's yours?
I also love Instagram. And part of that is I've embraced the instant piece, right? Like I'm out at the beach and my son's doing something that inspires me, or I'm in the garden, and I am a visual person and absolutely love art. I like to paint. And so there's this artistic piece to Instagram that's really fun for me. So I can see how Twitter like really goes for you, like, and how that blends with your skill set and your personality. And Instagram has just been a place where I've been really enjoying putting up some fun posts. And my handle is at Create, Cultivate, Celebrate. So if you go to at Create, Cultivate, Celebrate, you can find me on Instagram, and then Melissa Thompson on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. We will have links to Dr. Melissa Thompson's Instagram, as well as her LinkedIn. And we will have a link to accessing your website, because you have a website as well. Is that right, Melissa?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple, but there you can just find me, and I direct message me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and we'll get connected.
Now you realize that Instagram is the hipster platform right now. It's the one that's leading the charge. So I'm not hip anymore. I'm kind of like the I forget, like the fourth, sixth most popular platform. So I'm down the line with Twitter.
It's okay, Todd. It's okay. I have to say that I am so excited. I was not initially a social media person. And with the pandemic, I went that way, right? I wanted to connect with more people. And I love the fact that I can meet people like you and the Pharmacy Podcast Network and so many of the other talented pharmacists that are really trying to flip the script, right? Like flip what's happening out there. And I am so excited that we have this ability to connect and to network and to bring that creativity, right? Whether it's through the spoken word or through images or whatever medium that we want to connect with others, it's out there. And I love that. So I hope to meet lots more people through this.
Well, thank you. This has been amazing to talk with you and for you to share this with our listeners. We much appreciate. For those listening, if you have a story, something influential that you're doing to your community, to your health system, to a hospital, to a new program that you've come up with, the RX Influencer, you can go to rxinfluencer.com. That magazine is dedicated to people like Melissa. Melissa, I would like to invite you to write for that magazine. So let's get you to follow up and to get plugged into the RX Influencer, because that is what that platform is about. It's about showing how pharmacists are literally impacting very specific things within healthcare. And sometimes those stories are not being told. And I think that when we do tell them, it brings value to that individual and to that specific pharmacist specialty. And then we can turn that into really a campaign to drive public awareness of why is your pharmacist so important? Well, read this magazine that talks about, hundreds of pharmacists who are very special, special tuned into something very specific that opens the eyes and the appreciation of our communities and our people, those 330 million people that I told you about. We need a public relations surge on what pharmacists can do to change healthcare and to put the power of medicine and treatment and modality and changes to treatment ongoing and titration and addiction and pain management. And I mean, there's so much, psychedelic medications being used in the hand of pharmacists now, medical cannabis, pharmacogenomics. The public has to know about these things. So, Melissa, this has been an amazing interview, and I thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for your time, Todd. And I am excited about seeing what unfolds next.